Hey, everybody. You got the G-Man here with JDI Coaching at jdicoaching.com with another parts tip. On my 30 days of parts tip. This is tip number 2. And we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about days supply or setting the supply level of the parts that you're going to put on the shelf. So, my last tip, we talked about when the part was going to come in and when we are going to ship that back, when that part, we no longer wanted that anymore. So in today's tip, what I'm going to talk about is how many of those pieces do you want on the shelf? Now, it's up until, in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, the general wisdom, the general school of thought was we needed to have safety stock. What that means is you wanted to have a little bit more of those components on the shelf, because of the delivery time, the amount of time it would take to deliver the part. So it used to be, and maybe some of you guys don't even remember this, but there was a time when we were getting stock orders once a week and sometimes once every 2 weeks. And I'm pretty sure there's some parts of this country where that's still happening. They don't have a local, RDC or distribution center where they can get their parts the same day or next day. So what we would do is we would book in a little bit of a safety stock. There was a formula for that. You would take your order frequency, so that's how many times you would run a stock order. You would take how long it took you to review the stock order, that time, and then how long it was going to take the parts to come, and that would give you your first total. And then you would take that and multiply that by 2. So, let's just say if your order frequency, if you were ordering once every 4 days, you put 4, took you a day or so. Whoops, I hit my camera there. Put you a day or so to review it, and then if it took a week for that part to come in, then you would add all those together. So if you had 4 plus your review time of 1, that's 5. Plus, let's just call it 7. You're going to have 12 days. You would take that, multiply that by 2. And you would end up with 24 days. That would be your stocking guide. And then they would add on an additional amount to add on as safety stock in addition to that amount, so that you wouldn't run out, you wouldn't stock out. Nowadays, I don't think the formula is that complicated. Most of us have daily stock order. We don't need to have that much safety stock. So think about that for a second. If you haven't touched those settings in a while, it's time to go through and review those. There has been some talk or conversation about systems not being able to go too low. Most of the modern DMS systems today can handle a low, what we would call stocking level, right, or days supply. So most of them now have been adjusted for modern times and can handle a daily stock order, understanding that the daily stock order exists. So my advice is maybe a 15-day supply with an additional 5 days on there as your best stocking level. So you'd have a reorder point or a reaction point of 15 days, and then you would have then it would want to stock you back up to a day's supply of about 20 days. So between 15 and 20 days would give you enough of an inventory to where you're not going to run out, right? You're not going to stock out of that part. So that's my suggestion for you. If you have a longer stock order period, if you are getting still on a weekly or maybe even once every 2 week stock order because you live in a rural community, there is a formula for that. I'm happy to send it to you. Just reach out to me, Gary at jdicoaching.com, or leave a comment in the Facebook, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment in YouTube. We will check those, and I can send you that formula that will help you really define how much you should have on the shelf. But what you're really trying to do is you don't want to have too many of a fast-moving part on the shelf. So if you think about it, if you use the conventional wisdom and you were running a 28-day, let's say, base stocking level or a reorder point at 28 days, and you were adding another 15 days on top of that, you're running 42 days of supply. And we're really looking in a modern parts department to be less than 45. Anywhere between 30 and 45 is really what we're looking for in terms of an inventory value, and not, out towards 60, which is what we were looking at probably before. So if you want to keep it around 30 to 45 days, you're going to have to really watch where your reorder points are and where your stocking levels are. And in addition to that, if we're getting a daily stock order, we don't need all those parts on the shelf, and you don't have to have all your dollars invested in parts that you're just going to get tomorrow. Think about I was at a dealership recently, and they had a shelf that had brake rotors on it, probably about 20 or 30 brake rotors on it. And when you look in the back of the shelf, so they had them stacked 3 deep on the shelf. If you look towards the back of the shelf, those rotors had so much dust on them, they hadn't been touched in probably a year. So do you really need to have those there? Is that a wise use of the dealer's money? Having those parts there, and we're never going to touch them. So what I'm suggesting is that you shrink the depth of your inventory. You look at some of these fast movers. You look at the day supply you have on them. You look at how many it's forcing you to put in stock, and maybe try to shrink that down a little bit. And then that gives you investment dollars also to use to widen. So we talked a little bit about phase in and phase out, and maybe trying to be a little bit more aggressive on your phase in, and phasing in some of the low dollar, let's say under $5 at 2 and 12 instead of 3 and 12, would give you more part numbers on the shelf. And eliminating the depth on some of the fast movers could give you investment dollars to be able to do that. And that would help get your fill off the shelf rate, let's say above 90%. Which we're going to talk about in more detail, but that's a huge boost to technician efficiency, which is going to equal dollars that far outweigh the investment in some of those low dollar parts. So again, just to review, go back, look at your system settings, and see where your day supply, where's your best reorder point, or your best, your low stocking level. Some say low high. But really it is when it gets to the low number, that's when it's going to reorder the part, and then it wants to stock you up to the high number. And so you want to look at what those levels are, and you want to adjust them for the modern parts department. And I can tell you, if keep an eye on it. Watch your stock orders. As you run your stock orders and you start to look through what the parts department's ordering, look at how it's doing its analysis, and monitor it. If it looks like you're getting too lean, you can put it back up a little bit. If it looks like you're too fat, you can bring it down. But this is something, I would massage it for a couple of months and then go back and evaluate, because we've been kind of in a set it and forget it mode for many, many years. And I think right now is a great time. Again, we're having this time to pause, and maybe things are a little bit slower. It's a great time to go in, check all those system settings, and get your system set up right, and start to measure things moving forward. Get a much cleaner, much leaner, much meaner inventory. Get a higher return on that investment for the dealer, and I promise he's going to thank you for it, and your life's going to be a lot easier as a result of it. So that's my tip. Take a look at your supply settings. Make sure that your day supply is set up correctly, and get the right part on the shelf at the right time. Hope you enjoyed the tip. Hey everybody, G-Man here. I want to say thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you got something out of it. If you did, if you got any value at all, please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube so you can stay up to date with all the content that we're bringing out. And if you have any questions at all, or you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Leave a comment on Facebook or YouTube, or you can email us, Gary@jdicoaching.com, and we'll get right back to you. Thanks again.